John Razimus Hughston here. What is a poltergeist? What is the poltergeist phenomena? It's an obscure subject for those who aren't familiar with it on a first-hand basis. It's just a word with little to no meaning for those who haven't witnessed it, who haven't seen it, who haven't had an encounter with it, or know someone who has. Growing up, I didn't have any encounters with it as a kid whatsoever. So it was a foreign concept to me. All I knew was the Steven Spielberg movie, Poltergeist. The girl looking at the TV, wormhole or portal or something to another dimension in the wall or the ceiling or whatever. Or was that the Twilight Zone episode? I think it was inspired by the Twilight Zone episode, most definitely. Stacking chairs. The classic every drawer open scenario. I didn't study it. I didn't seek it out. Didn't have any opinion of it whatsoever. I had zero opinion of it growing up. Whether it was real or fake, didn't know, didn't care, couldn't care less. I could tell you in this video what the poltergeist phenomena is. I could tell you what a poltergeist is in this video, and I will, because I witnessed and experienced firsthand and was harassed / a host, a target to 2 poltergeists in the year 2011. I think most hosts, victims, targets of poltergeists are under a lot of stress, and so they don't study the phenomenon the same way I did. They don't study everything that's going on, keep a record in their head of what's going on, what happened, of what is happening. I was writing a paper on time travel. I was a big Back to the Future fan. I was big into busting people who lie and say they're time travelers. Because from my perspective, if someone says they can time travel and they're from the year 2036, 3030, 5072, 6037, they're basically saying, oh yeah, I'm a god, by the way. I'm a god. Pop in and out, different times, whatever. They're basically saying they're a god because being able to time travel is to have godlike powers. Now, totally different subject. Not going to talk about that anymore. I'm talking about poltergeists. The reason I mentioned that is that's the mindset I was in when these poltergeists started showcasing their abilities in a room I rented in 2011. Rented a room on Craigslist. I think it was $500 a month. Could have been $400 a month. Good deal. I remember it was $100 cheaper than my previous place. It was 4 or 5, I can't remember. But I do have records of living there. I have a couple receipts from living there. I saw in a box a couple months ago. But 2 weeks in, nothing happened. After 2 weeks, full blown with my eyes watching. The reason I have to emphasize with my eyes watching as it happened is having studied the phenomenon of poltergeist activity since 2011, 11 years at this point. Or is it 10 years? 10 years. It's 10 years, isn't it? Yeah, 10 years. Just 11, all these 11s. So 10 years ago, I got over the hurdle of being harassed for 6 months in a row every single day, my eyeballs beholding in front of my face, seeing the activity. If you don't see the activity in front of your face, chances are you're not a host or a victim or a target of a poltergeist. If you just fleetingly see it behind your back, hear it behind your back, it's some type of passive, maybe someone else is the host and maybe you're just there to be harassed on the side. I don't know. Or perhaps it's a weaker level of harassment, a weaker level of target. But hosts, all I can do is speak for myself. I was a host for 6 months now. I use the word host because it showcases his abilities to me, but I didn't particularly have many people over to that room I rented. It was the master bedroom. I had, to be quite frankly honest, only one person really visit and hang out with me. The landlady might have stepped in for a few seconds here and there. The roommate might have stepped in the hallway a few seconds here and there. Someone helped me move a bed in there. Only one person hung out with me in there, and they didn't witness anything. All I can say is they said they got the chills. So that's the extent of what they experienced. Not much, not phenomenal. That could be a draft. That could be the air conditioning. That could be a change in temperature. People get the chills all the time. No big deal. Although, if you're on a ghost investigation, you want to pay attention to stuff like that. But evidence-wise, getting the chills is very poor on the evidence scale. And as far as being able to prove it, I cannot prove any of this story, other than having investigated it thoroughly to an extreme degree for 10 years in a row. Maybe it's closer to 9.5 years. Maybe it's closer to 9 years. Maybe it's closer to 8 years, because I didn't expect this, didn't want this. I was into time travel. I was into totally different subjects. Wasn't into investigating spirits. Had little to no opinion on the subject until it was in the forefront of my life. I pushed it away, but it was there. And they were intelligent beings. So what is a poltergeist? Poltergeist is an intelligent, independent, sentient, conscious entity of a spirit matter and a spirit nature from another dimension. But they're not fully from another dimension. They walk the earth with 2 feet and 2 legs. Poltergeists don't fly around. They walk on 2 feet. But they walk on 2 spirit feet. I actually was able to witness spirit feet step on a sheet I had pinned to my wall. So I got to see the feet impression. Pull down actually a green screen. I found a chroma key green bed sheet at Walmart because I looked at chroma key screens because I was into making Back to the Future videos, hoax hunter videos, time travel related videos, hoax busting related videos. And so, sure, I was a YouTuber, but, and it's extremely obvious that someone who talks about poltergeist activity is just doing it for attention. I don't think anyone talks about it. For how many years have I talked about it? 5, 6, 7 years in a row on this channel. So there are many theories people could throw out there. Crazy, liar, attention. None of those things are true, though. The truth is, I collect, I don't know if you can see these here. I collect occult books, and I found a few coinciding pieces of poltergeist information in these occult books because I can reverse engineer what's true and what's false. On the subject of poltergeists, having been a host and witness of them for 6 months in a row in front of my face, 10 to 20 objects every single day, every single night. When I went to work, nothing happened at work. When I drove in my car, nothing happened in my car. When I got home, it was there. They were there. A typical day, I would get home, 5:15 p.m. Chill out, check my email, see what new videos are online. I didn't have cable, so I relied on watching all my TV shows on the internet. Hulu was pretty brand new in 2011, so I was checking out Hulu. Hulu was different back then. There were free movies, a lot of promos. I had a free account. I never had a paid account. I just watched corny 80s movies, this and that, here and there. And 2-3 hours go by, nothing. And then some knocks, some bangs, some creaks, some sitting on surfaces. This very table right here was sat on by the Poltergeists many times in 2011. Yes, I did buy this. I bought this in North Hollywood for, I think I bought this table for $75. Drudged it all the way back to my place, and immediately they didn't sound that human. Like you can hear my fingernails. Poltergeists, they don't really have fingernails other than spirit fingernails. So they have to manipulate objects a little bit differently than a human being would. They literally can change the inside of this object, the temperature. They can change the temperature of inside, and they can make pops and creaks using temperature changes. That's one way they could do it. But they can manifest a hand, and they can do that. But they have to manifest it. They could manifest a foot, try to kick it over, but this would have been too big of an object for them. So what is a poltergeist? What is it? It's a negative entity assigned to harass someone for a purpose. There's always a purpose behind it. Eastern mysticism says there's always a punishment or test involved in such a harassment of a supernatural being harassing a human. There has to be a test or punishment taking place. And I have to agree, definitely a punishment and a test took place during the 6 months. It's interesting that higher dimensional, angelic, heavenly, otherworldly, godly entities, beings, they tell time, because 6 months is a very specific amount of time. So the 6 months started, the 6 months ended. Even after I moved, I rented the place for 6 months. I had a 6-month agreement. And when the 6-month agreement was up, I was out of there. A normal person would have bailed, but when you're dead broke, you stay. That's why I stayed for the 6 months. A regular person, I was like, this place is haunted. I asked my roommate, is your room haunted? Anything? I didn't start with that because that's a little over the top. I said, have you experienced anything unusual in your room? Anything strange? Anything out of the ordinary? I started with lines of questioning like that because he wanted to chat. He wanted to talk. He wanted to know where I worked, what my hobbies were. And I just asked him, anything creepy? I didn't say creepy. I just said unusual, out of the ordinary, strange. And then I probably went into the supernatural. And he didn't get what I was talking about. He's like, nope, not really. Nope. Maybe some strange dreams, he said. And I said, what kind of dreams? He said, angels and demon type dreams. I was like, okay, that's kind of creepy. Then he told me he's into Stephen King and he reads a bunch of horror novels. And he writes his own horror novels. So, I mean, he did talk to me for a good hour once. And he said, oh, this is how my book goes. My book goes like this, this, this. I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, you should pursue your dream and your goal to be like your hero, Stephen King. And then as he was telling me, I wish I got this guy's name. You got to understand, I only met this roommate and talked with him a good 6 times. That's it. During the 6 months. So I would have fleetingly seen him and talked with him a few times 10 years ago. And I don't have his name memorized. Don't have... I bumped into him. At a bar. I don't know how many years ago. It's probably 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And I wanted to get his name. He recognized me. He's like, "Hey, how's it going, man?" I was like, "Yeah, going good." And then I'm with someone, and then I look for him, and he was gone. So if I ever bump into him, I would ask him if he could be on camera. Can you at least, I know you didn't witness anything, but can you at least corroborate that I told you there's poltergeist activity in my room, which he could. Because I further went on to say to him, okay, basically my room is freaking haunted, freaking demons, freaking poltergeists, moving objects in my room. He was like, whoa, okay. So I don't know if he believed me or not. But whether he believed me or not, he heard me say that information to him as a roommate in the location. I mentioned it to him probably a good 2-3 times. Out of the 6 times I talked with him, probably 2 or 3 of them I mentioned the story enough where he heard me, and he didn't experience that whatsoever. So I thought that was interesting. The harassment, the target, was only in my room, the master bedroom. The landlady, I did ask her. I said, have you experienced the exact line of, have you experienced anything unusual, anything strange, blah, blah, blah. And this is as I'm moving out. So I didn't have any fear of holding back. I'm leaving. I'm literally packing my stuff and leaving that day. And so I said, have you experienced any, and I cut to the chase. I said, have you experienced any poltergeist activity? She had a really shocked look on her face, like, what? And that's the last time I saw her that I remember. Just really freaked out look on her face. Didn't mean to scare her. Just wanted to know if anyone else in the house experienced it. I had a roommate who was a sushi chef who I saw like once or twice. And hey, is the only thing I would have said to him. That's it. He was a very private person. He was never there. Other than I think I saw him fleetingly, I had caught a glimpse, and he wasn't in the mood for talking. He was either driving to work or getting back, and blah, 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 or I was leaving. So I never got a chance to ask him. But his room was exactly on the other side of my closet. So if anyone would have experienced crazy stuff, it would have been his room. So I never got a chance to ask. What is a poltergeist? Speaking of closets, they enjoy knocking and banging things in closets. Sounds like the boogeyman. Sounds like a myth. Sounds like mythology. Sounds like a fictional story designed to scare kids into going to church. It's none of those things. It's an authentic phenomenon. I bought many books and on the occult, on spirits. Here's a book I've yet to read. I have read some of these books. I've read Kingdoms of Flame. I've read Initiates of the Flame, back to front, multiple times. So I don't just display books to not read them. But this one right here on the end is called India's Hood Unveiled by L.W. DeLawrence. And after displaying it, I see that it has a subtitle. So I'm going to read and review this book, this full book. Book reviews coming soon. But the subtitle, because it doesn't say the title on the side, which you would expect, it says Spirit Sight at Will. Spirit Sight at Will. That's very interesting. Being able to see spirits at will, that catches my attention. That's probably why I put it on the side. Hindu levitation. When I think of Hindu levitation, I think of, like street performers having a gimmick of some metal rod holding them up, collecting money. You can see a lot of videos on YouTube of the levitation trick. Speaking of levitation, I even talked on this channel about wanting to see levitation with my eyeballs. And all I can say is don't say something out loud many times. I probably said it a good 10 times in a good 10 videos you can watch on this channel before I witnessed it. I witnessed levitation, full-blown levitation in the year 2018 in my room. Totally different room from the haunted room. So there's a residual effect. There's a following. These spirits follow you, I believe, for the rest of your life. But as far as the two, like, twin trickster, mischievous demon poltergeists with full-blown independent conscious reactionary responses to anything I would have said to them, they had their own game plan. I was playing a video game, Ultima Online. I was watching a movie on Hulu, not an advertisement. This was back when I rented DVDs at Redbox. So a lot of the time I'll rent a DVD at Redbox for $1, pop it in my laptop, and I would watch. It's not a Redbox advertisement, but I actually checked my emails to see certain time frames with Redbox receipts until I realized I didn't use my email with that DVD. If you didn't use your email when you're punching it in, a lot of the times it doesn't give you an email receipt. But that's how I try to track down certain dates of when certain things happened. I would just watch a movie, whatever the case may be. I went to the drugstore, bought some cheap movies for $3 a piece, whatever. I would watch movies, poltergeist activity. We're talking cup fall over, bunch of pencils fall over. Stuff knock over. Full-blown hand knock stuff over. I can't see the hand. They were optically 100% invisible. Poltergeists are beings in another dimension, but they're also slightly in this dimension. And they have to manifest with energy, a hand, to knock over something. Extremely rarely will they manifest a visible hand. So they manifest an invisible hand. I can't say that I ever saw a manifestation of any physical form other than the object they're knocking over. Ever. Other than at the grist mill, and even then I didn't see it through the viewfinder, only upon looking at the video a year later. I believe that was a mist form of the entity. It seems like this video is all over the place, but the fact is poltergeists are sentient beings, they're negative beings, but Eastern mysticism will say that they're not necessarily negative beings. Maybe they're teaching a lesson, and maybe they're good beings. I would say that's false. I experienced them straight up, firsthand. They're pure evil, pure evil, pure evil. It got on top of me, choked me. Had a chokehold on me for a good 1.5, 2 minutes straight. Jumped on top of me, chokehold. And this isn't sleep paralysis. This is me literally flicking off the light switch. It wasn't that fast. It was about this fast. Walk to the bed. Get under the covers. Put my head on the pillow. It was that fast. That fast between the time I flicked the light off. There was no, dazing off for an hour. It was literally seconds after flicking the light switch off. Only a few seconds. Less than 30 seconds after flicking the light switch off, they jumped on top of me and grabbed me with 3 hands. Hand on my throat, hand on my mouth, hand on my tongue. So I could breathe out of my nose, but the fear and panic I wasn't focusing on that. I was focusing on trying to talk because I wanted to command them to leave, and I couldn't. So I was like, because my tongue was bound. First and only time that's ever happened. But I distinctly remember feeling 3 hands. And the hands felt small, tiny, if you will. I don't know. The hands were as small as my 3 fingers, as opposed to a full hand. But at full grip, when you don't know it's coming and it's totally invisible, pretty freaky stuff. So why I say they're pure evil and they couldn't possibly be good? Because I learned their personalities. I was losing sleep. I commanded them to leave 4 times, 5 times one night. I think 5 is my record. And I stayed up all night. I went to bed like at 5 a.m. that night. I think they left around 4 a.m., but the panic and fear from 4 to 5 is me waiting for their next move. So they did have a window where they showed up. They showed up around as early as 5 p.m., as late as 4 a.m., somewhere around that time frame. But that wouldn't have been the height of the activity. The height of the activity would have been like 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., somewhere around there, 3 a.m. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 would have been the height of the knocks and the bangs and the creaks and the sitting on things. Witnessed it firsthand. In my last video, I said I witnessed the boxes knocking over in front of my face. I didn't leave the room and come back and they're in a different position. In front of my eyeballs, I saw them knock over from an invisible foot kicking them. I assumed that's what it was because that's what it looked like. So what is a poltergeist? When I say they are evil, but they could be a test mechanism of the universe, and therefore not all evil, I think they're pure evil beings that could theoretically be used as pawns in a game. And while being used as pawns, they can be used for good purposes unknowingly to them. So I think they're pure evil, but I don't think they know everything. I don't think the ones I experienced didn't have genius personalities. They weren't geniuses. They acted more like demonic kids than they did any type of genius. They acted like stooges, like minions. They acted like servants to a more intelligent negative entity who assigned them to me. So poltergeists, they're not just servant negative beings of higher ranking evil demonic forces sent to harass people randomly or for a specific purpose. They're also always here at all times. Not in this room. They're actually hanging out somewhere right now. You see, these aren't beings that manifest and then disappear into nothing. They're always somewhere because they're sentient, conscious, independent, actual beings, all right? They're somewhere right now. They're not here right now. But if they were here right now, they're just not knocking because they don't want me to know they're here. I'm not a paranoid person. I don't think about paranoid conspiracy theories all day long. I don't care about such theories. I know what I experienced firsthand to the point where I've collected thousands of dollars of ghost hunting equipment, thousands of dollars of occult books. Some have great knowledge and wisdom. Some have no knowledge and no wisdom and are pure trash. But I can't say any of these are like that. If I have it here, there's at least one sliver of wisdom inside of it. Even if I disagree with 99% of the book. If I find one tiny sliver of information that I can corroborate as authentic information on the unknown universe, the other side, the other dimension, the architecture of the universe, some people don't question what is going on. What is that? What? I'm going to get to the bottom. I'm going to find out what that is. Some people are like, couldn't care less, dude. Couldn't care less. And they go about their life not caring about anything. They brush everything off. They're just intellectually, and this isn't about intellectualism. I think there are plenty of intellectuals that disregard the entire phenomenon of spirits, ghosts, angels, demons. I think it's total nonsense. You have the exact opposite of that. If someone knows of a surety of a fact, of a personal fact, to the point where they're looking for the hot spots. I know the phenomenon is real. I know that out there they're somewhere. Where are they hanging out? I think some of them are hanging out on mountaintops. I think some of them are hanging out in old buildings. I think some of them are hanging out in the basement, in the attic right now. Some of them are gathering. Hey, let's blah, 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 blah. Here's our plan. I can't even pretend to eavesdrop on their plans. They're in another dimension. Anyone pretending they can eavesdrop on the plans of a dimensional being that take their meetings on a mountain where humans can't breathe, they're in the realm of just theorizing. So I would never claim to know everything. Don't claim to even know more than but a sliver. But with that sliver of information, of first-hand witness of poltergeist activity, I know that a higher-ranking, I say higher-ranking demon, higher-ranking negative being, most likely assigned, most definitely assigned, 2 poltergeists to harass me for 6 months. First 2 weeks, nothing happened. Moved out, down the street, when the 6-month rent agreement was up, and I noticed I had a cup of pencils and I could hear them playing with the pencils. They didn't even fall out of the pencil holder. I could just hear them played with, maybe picked up and dropped, maybe just fingers ran through it type of sound. So it's very minimal activity when I moved. But that minimal activity lasted for about 2 weeks, just to fulfill the 6-month contract. 6 months, it must be some type of sacred, if you will, some type of important occult amount of time. Because the Abramelin, here we have a copy of it underneath the Book of Black Magic and Pacts. Now, you gotta understand, in no way, shape, or form am I going to have a pact with a negative entity or try to summon one, okay? But I'm going to read up on people that claim to have done such, because I want to see their perspective on these beings from a different perspective, a different angle. Here's the Abramelin. Yeah. You're always going to get the guy that repeats what some other guy said. He heard a comment and just verbatim, word for word, will repeat what that guy said on the Abramelin, not being 6 months, but after the translation, it's more than 6 months. It's supposed to be a year and a half or something. All I can say is I'm trying to make a point that there's some special connection with 6 months. Because Roger Morneau left a full-blown spiritism worship organization of full-blown fallen angels. I was like, that's a very far-fetched story, until I heard him say, and this is such an obscure thing that I've looked and looked and looked and looked, and I can't find it, but he only has 2 major recorded filmed interviews, so I'm going to have to watch them front to back. But I know he says it because I remember seeing it, although I've read a couple of his books. So as I'm reading his books, I might just have a flash of what he looks like from the interviews, and I might have read him write about it in one of his books. So now I'm just going to have to read all of his books again. But Roger Morneau did say, I'm going to find it, I haven't thoroughly looked for it. I've gone back to the interviews and looked where I thought it was. I couldn't find it. But it is in there somewhere. Roger Morneau said, after he left, he joined a church, and this was a couple months down the road. His pastor says, how are you doing? How are you holding up? How's it going? How's everything? And Roger says, things are going pretty good. Pretty good. Things are turning around. Things are going good. And then I think the pastor inquires a little bit more if things are going good. And Roger admits, there's poltergeist activity in my house. There's levitation, and I was holding a Bible, and the poltergeist knocked the Bible out of my hand. The poltergeist picked up a picture, a frame picture on the wall and moved it. Picked up a lamp and moved it. And the pastor is probably like, that doesn't sound like it's okay to me. That sounds like the exact opposite of okay. But Roger was like, no. Things are okay. I can get over this. So maybe he said it was 6 months later poltergeist happened. So I could be confused. Maybe he didn't say it was 6 months of poltergeist activity, but I'm almost positive. I have to go back and look at it. I'm just looking for fleeting glimpses of other people also experiencing this 6-month window of poltergeist activity. Roger Morneau seeing full-blown levitation in front of his face is particularly unusual. Having witnessed poltergeist activity myself, I never witnessed it in 2011. The act of actual levitation in front of my face. I call them twin demons. The twin demon poltergeists in 2011 that harassed me every single day. 5 to 10 objects moved a day. 5 to 10. It was 10 to 20. About 10 to 20, but in front of my eyeballs, like I said, I've said this, I've written about it. I would have seen one thing knocked over, a second thing knocked over, a bottle of water knocked over, but it would have never been something heavy. It would have been something light. Like it would have been a bottle of water that was 25% full. They would always look for something light. They're very calculated in what they did. I think these beings literally examined the room and looked for a light object they knew that they could knock over. And they looked at that object and like, I'm going to knock that over when he gets back from work. And literally they'd be like waiting to knock over a bottle of water for like 5 hours straight. I'm going to knock that over. I got the energy to do it. So I think they have an energy limit, that they do have an energy limit. I made fun of them one time, blah, blah, blah. I said, I could knock over that with my pinky. Congratulations. That's not very powerful. That's all you got? I can do that with this. And then I said, maybe my index finger. Maybe it's as strong as this. Congratulations, you're so strong. So I that was the one time I broke from my almost monk-like meditative ignoring them. And I taunted them, which I do not recommend. I highly recommend if anything like this ever happens to you, poltergeist activity, harassment. Literally, get in a meditative, monk-like, ignoring them state of never acknowledging their existence, which is very hard. I can tell you there is a consequence to ignoring them, though. Remember about halfway through when they jumped up and grabbed my throat and tongue and mouth? They were mad at me because I ignored them for a long period of time. There's a movie called From Beyond I was watching on Hulu. Open up my laptop, watch From Beyond. First time I ever saw the movie, first time I ever heard of it. It's apparently a horror classic from the 80s. Never heard of it. I'm not into horror enough to have heard of it. I'll watch corny 80s horror more than I'll watch anything modern. Except if it's occult themed, and it's interesting to see if Hollywood knows anything about these secrets, poltergeist activity, secrets of negative entities, secrets, and really they don't. Hollywood doesn't have much insight whatsoever, probably because they don't believe. So they'll read up and then they'll turn it into a script. I'm sure a few directors have firsthand experience with negative entities. And I could see them turning that into art, but that's neither here nor there. If you're in a monk-like state, these beings will retaliate to try to get your attention 10 times stronger. That's what happened to me. But more specifically, I could say this. I ignored these beings for like a month straight. This would have been about 3 months in. So 2 weeks in, nothing. And then, 2 more weeks, I noticed them. I was caught off guard. But I can tell you this much. When poltergeist activity happens in front of your face for the first time, the first second, the first thought in my head was, I know what that is. I know what you are. I know what's going on. That was literally the first thought I had. These are negative entities. This is nothing to mess with. And that's why I had a gut-wrenching just survival instinct to not want to record them, to not want to encourage them, to not want to taunt them, which obviously I failed at that. I did end up taunting them one time. But I didn't film them, and I had a video camera that I bought at Walmart. And it took me a good 4 months to save up the $300 to buy one of the dirt cheapest cameras, video recording cameras, at Walmart. And I had it in the corner of my room, and it was sitting there for a good week, 2 weeks. And after that camera fell over and knocked over my DVD stack that was on top of my computer, and the DVDs scattered all over the place. I was literally on my bed, just chilling, and a tripod with my camera on it that had been sitting there for 2 weeks just collecting dust in the corner of my room knocked over. It was pushed. I, out of the corner of my eye, saw it pushed. And then I saw in front of my face it knock over the stack of DVDs, and the DVDs fall all over the place. And I was like, oh great, I gotta clean up after you guys. And I did make a couple comments like, you don't pay rent, stupid stuff like that. One time I had Walmart plastic bags on the ground just because, it was a little bit messy, okay? I bought something, left it on the ground, no big deal. And I heard their footsteps on the Walmart plastic bags. And after that, it's such a freaky thing to just be, trying to go to sleep, and you hear footsteps on Walmart plastic bags on the floor of your room. It was so freaky, I immediately turned on the light, crumpled up these bags as hard as I could, shoved them, and cleaned up the whole room. And I proceeded to clean up the whole room ever since to the best of my ability, and I made it as poltergeist proof as I could. But after I knocked over the camera, I eventually moved the tower computer in that corner, maybe stacked a few other things, and I would hear constant just moving, sitting, touching of anything in that corner. And that's when I noticed that's their corner. That's also when I started to notice, hey, there's a creak in the corner. Kind of like it sounded kind of like a house settling creak or a temperature changing creak in the corner before the activity started. I heard it time and time again to the point where I made the connection. They enter the room from that corner. Corners of rooms is a theory I talk about. It's a theory I guess you could say just saw firsthand and have postulated, written about, talked about. Poltergeists. They're more than a foreign concept. They're more than a ghost, a noisy ghost. They're more than a mischievous thing that moves an object. They're actual beings with the ability to do such. Speaking of my tower computer, I heard a screw picked up and dropped as I was trying to sleep, like just as I was trying to sleep. That's when they did do things to try to really get my attention when I just turned the light off. They spun the wheel on the luggage underneath my bed only once, but I think it was the same night as I heard the screw picked up and dropped. So the screw picked up and dropped sounds like the only levitation that happened, because everything else I saw looked like it was punched, kicked, either with a manifested hand or manifested foot. Never saw levitation in 2011. Never saw levitation in 2010. Never saw levitation until the year 2018, when I did my first Corners of Rooms experiment. It set off a REM pod. My second Corners of Rooms experiment, I don't think anything phenomenal happened. I planned a live stream Corners of Rooms experiment, and 2 days before that first live stream Corners of Rooms experiment, which may have been the only one, because I really wanted to stop it at this point, and I do not recommend such experiments in your room. I do not recommend such experiments in your house. You're opening up an invitation. It's worse than a Ouija board. Ouija boards, I think, at this point, and even in their inception, in their creation, they can be very scary doorways. Don't touch them. But they can also be a Milton Bradley, let's play Monopoly, let's play Ouija board. And a Corners of Rooms experiment, there's no questions on what's going on. You know it's not a game. You're inviting something very negative into your space. Don't recommend it. Don't do it. But in 2018, 2 days before the live stream, these beings are smart enough to know not to showcase their abilities on camera. And I'm smart enough to not want to tempt them in my personal living quarters to do such. But sure, on a ghost investigation far enough away from my house, I will say, hey, can you do something? Even then, it's an iffy road. Don't recommend ghost investigating. I do it for personal reasons, because I've witnessed them. I've witnessed spirits. I've witnessed poltergeists. I've witnessed negative entities. I've witnessed demons firsthand, to the point where I have no fear of them, which is probably not a good place to be. You probably should be a little bit scared of them. I could be startled by them, but afraid of them, I am not. So, it might be why I don't get too much activity anymore. They know I'm not scared of it. They know I'll just repeat it in a story. I mean, I haven't experienced anything except for one thing. No, I'm not even going to mention it. Not going to mention it because it's not phenomenal. It's not groundbreaking. But I do want to ghost investigate in the future, as early as tomorrow, perhaps. I always plan on going somewhere. Bam, my time is gone. I got to do laundry. I got fleeting few days of time, and that's why I don't ghost investigate, to be genuinely honest. Stay tuned. More videos coming soon. John Razimus Hughston. Poltergeists are beings somewhere. Where are they? They're hanging out on the mountaintop right now, chilling. They're there. Okay, this is something I didn't know, all right, until I witnessed them firsthand, is they have physical properties that the average person, the average human, the average Hollywood scriptwriter, the average Joe, the average churchgoer, the average priest, the average doctor, lawyer, the average cab driver, the average anyone has no concept of. It's literally a new concept that was brought to my attention during the 6 months of poltergeist harassment that I had to endure. Is these beings are more physical than we give them credit for. Yes, they can walk through walls. Yes, they can be undetected, be totally invisible. Yes, they have a hard time manifesting a hand and actually lifting something. And I will mention what I did see levitation-wise in 2018. I'll mention it again. I haven't mentioned in this video yet. But their physical nature is this. Negative spirits hang out at physical coordinates on this planet at all times. They don't disappear and go to some cloud. Okay? They're walking around somewhere right now. There's a stack of poltergeist stories right here that I scoured the internet to get, and I read one of them. And this guy is a poltergeist expert, rest in peace. He has since passed on, but I hope to actually carry the torch, continue his legacy from a different perspective. His name is Raymond Bayless, and he was never a poltergeist host. He was the type of guy that sought it out so much that he would have seen poltergeist activity maybe once or twice in his entire life. And he was usually over the shoulder, out of the corner of the eye. Someone else was the host, and he caught a few glimpses. He probably did see in front of his face a few fleeting times. I'm not comparing, we're two different perspectives. He sought it out actively for a good portion of his life. I never did, yet was shown in front of my face for 6 months. So totally different perspectives, yet I knew what the phenomenon was after that. I became interested enough to research it after a few years. I was still traumatized enough to not want to thoroughly research it or investigate it. I didn't buy this ghost hunting equipment immediately. I waited many years. Can't remember the first year I bought ghost hunting equipment, but we're talking after 2015. So 2016, 2017, I may have gotten a few things here and there. But it was 2018 where I really got into it. And in 2018, but let me talk about this Raymond Bayless story that he really documents and records and has a great number of poltergeist stories collected. But maybe he didn't actually collect this one. I think he did. It's in Fate magazine. Fate magazine. Kind of an obscure paranormal magazine. I bought every single one I could find on poltergeist activity. And one of the stories is this. A guy who's hiking in the mountains. Just going for a day hike. No big deal. I guess he walked a little bit too far. Maybe didn't judge exactly how long it took to get there and back. And so he's kind of stuck, and it's getting really dark. So maybe 9 p.m. is creeping up on him, and he's trudging his way down the mountain. And it's in California. So I think it is a Raymond Bayless recorded story. It's a story he picked up from the newspaper, made a news clipping, and he wrote books. And he went back to these locations. And I don't think he went to this particular mountain, but it sounds like someplace I would most definitely want to go and at least check it out. Who hangs out on a mountaintop at 9, 10 p.m.? Not too many. So as long as, the more obscure mountaintop anyway, the less people are going to be there. There's going to be, coyotes or whatever. But, so this mountain hiker, he knows he's alone. He walked up the mountain, didn't see a soul. Walked down the mountain, didn't see a soul. But he took a rest, probably on a rock or something such, and he hears super distinct foot steps from a human foot. Running towards him. He hears human footsteps running towards him. Now, it must have been enough light where he could still see, but it's starting to get dark. So maybe it wasn't 9 or 10. Maybe it was dusk. Maybe it was more like 7 p.m. But I remember he was stuck up there pretty late. And that's a key piece of information. Perhaps this poltergeist doesn't come out until it's nighttime on the mountaintop. This is one of the ways I came across my mountaintop theory. And I'm going to do some mountaintop investigations. So this guy's resting on a rock and he hears it coming towards him. Footsteps, human footsteps. He hears it walk exactly past him, no more than a few feet away in front of his face. No one. He doesn't see anyone, but he hears the footsteps in front of his face. And then he hears the footsteps continue down the trail, down the walking trail. This isn't a ghost of a hiker. It's not a ghost of someone that likes to jog. It's a negative entity, in my opinion, just patrolling the area, manifesting feet to walk. It is perhaps watching this guy go for a nice run, go for a nice hike, and emulating it, but it's not any type of spirit recreating something. It's a sentient, conscious being, and I jumped to the conclusion of negative entity because in my experience only negative entities manifest a foot, manifest a hand to do such things as scare the crap out of you. I think positive beings can manifest a hand and foot to do good deeds, but they're never going to do it to scare you, ever. So the levitation I saw, the poltergeist activity, levitation, that I saw in 2018. I'm just hearing noises down there, no big deal. Probably unrelated. Let's hope. But occasionally when I do tell stories, stuff happens. I don't jump to conclusions. I'm a very skeptical person. But I did say on multiple videos I would like to see levitation one day. I never got to see it. Never got to see full-blown levitation in front of my face. Never saw it. I saw things knocked over and kicked. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing seeing a bottle knocked over, a bottle of water. It's not the same thing seeing pencils knocked over. It's not the same thing seeing boxes knocked over. I did see my cushions sat down, impressed. Twice within a minute's time. But I never saw levitation in 2011. So I talked about it. Because it's one of the cliche things that's thrown around Hollywood, is levitation. Stacking chairs, never saw it. Drawers opening. Nope. I never saw drawers opening. Although, I didn't have any drawers. I'm trying to think. My closet door was open most of the time. 99% of the time. I never tried to close it to keep the poltergeists out. I never thought it would do anything. So I never closed the closet. But I did sense that they were in the closet a couple times. Specifically when they knocked over the boxes. I think they were hanging out in the closet. But experience where the spirit manifested on a box in the open closet of a different house, different room. So this is the levitation I saw in 2018. I'm watching a show on Netflix. Can't remember the show. Even after it happened, I'm like, remember everything. Remember what show you were watching. I think I wrote it down in a text file on my laptop because I was watching the Netflix show on my laptop. I believe it was this very laptop right here. I'm almost positive. This exact, yeah, it was this one. Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was this exact laptop. 2018. Yeah, it was this laptop right here. I was watching some random recommended Netflix show. I was wearing headphones because this particular laptop has the speakers right here. Because the speakers are right here, this laptop was on sale. And I realized why it was on sale after I got it. Because when you put the laptop on your lap, you can't hear much of anything because your lap is literally blocking the speakers. So I pretty much have to wear headphones every time I watch a movie or Netflix show, whatever, on that laptop. Because you can't really hear anything without the headphones. So I'm wearing headphones. I pause the show. I take them off to go to the restroom, take a restroom break. And this is what I experience. The door's closed. No one's in the room but me. 100% alone. I'm planning a Corners of Rooms live stream in 2 days. I worked the next day. And I mentioned in passing the experience to a coworker, to which they gave me a dirty look. So mentioning this stuff to people like coworkers, it's not widely accepted. All right, I mentioned it knowing they probably won't believe me. I just wanted to see their reaction, and their reaction was, huh? And they walked away from me. So mentioning this stuff, not a good idea. But this is what happened. Take my headphones off. I'm about to just get up from my bed and use the restroom. So I moved the laptop in the process of moving it off my lap to get up. But take off my headphones. I immediately hear a sound in my room of a person in my room touching my stuff. What did it sound like? It's hard to say, other than my stuff being touched on my desk. Right in front of me, a good, 5 feet in front of me, 6, 7 feet in front of me. Could be 8 feet tops, probably more like 7 feet in front of me. Okay, I'm trying to estimate. It's probably closer to 8, 9 feet. Okay, it could have been as far as 10 feet. I'm just trying to do the dimensions in my head. Could have been as far as 10 feet in front of me, my desk. This very computer desk, which was at the time in a different room, different place, different house. I hear noise. What did it sound like? That's not what it sounded like. It just sounded like stuff being rifled with on my desk. Specifically, my wires were being touched. Because that's what was being touched. But I didn't know what was being touched. I just knew someone was in my room making noises. And I knew my door was closed and I was about to go to the restroom. So I hear noise. I was going to push the laptop off my lap anyway. But as I do so, I look up above my laptop and I see a pile of wires on my desk because I don't register it as levitation, because this is the first time I'm ever seeing levitation ever. I'm not registering it as, oh, that's levitation. No big deal, because when you see levitation for the first time, you don't register, your brain can't wrap around, this is levitation, by the way. Your brain tries to make sense of what the levitation is. So my brain told me, I don't remember leaving your pile of wires in an impossible pile like this. And it wasn't a poltergeist stacking experiment of my wires being stacked. My wires were literally being held by a poltergeist's invisible hand. So the sound I heard as I took the headphones off was the wires being picked up. So I never actually got to see the picking up process. I only heard it. I look up. I see the wires dangling ever so slightly. They were dangling very slightly. So slightly you couldn't really see the dangle. But they were dangling. But I see it as a solid object because I don't know it's levitation yet. I'm like, I didn't know I left my wires in a pile like that. Then my second thought was, it's impossible for my wires to be in that pile because there's a bunch of air. There's a bunch of air holding up. What is going on? There's a bunch of air holding up my wires. What? And then the poltergeist dropped my wires, just as you would drop wires by dropping your fingers like this. And I saw just gravity take effect of the wires fall a good this far into my desk. And then the wires dangled against my desk for, a few minutes until the dangling stopped. So I did see full-blown levitation. That was it. The entity didn't even leave immediately after that. The entity proceeded to step on a second pile of wires on my floor, and just kind of just touch a few things and make a few noises, letting me know it's there. And with zero fear, I got up immediately. And I remember, I don't know if I ever told this detail. I got up immediately and I walked over to where the wires were at, and my laundry basket was in my way. So I kick my laundry basket out of the way. I walk exactly where I hear and see the wires making a noise on my floor, because I had the impression it was a particularly tall being, taller than the small ones that bothered me in 2011. This one had the height of what seemed like 6 feet, 7 feet. Seemed pretty tall the way it picked up my wires. It seemed like it would have been at least 6 feet tall, maybe 6.5, maybe 7. I don't know, but just the stance of where its hand would have been seemed pretty high. I mean, it could have been a tiny spirit standing on my desk for all I know, but because of the stepping of the wires after dropping the wires. I mean, it could have been a tiny entity that jumped on the wires, but I had the impression it was a taller being. I immediately said to it, "This is my house, this is my domain, this is my room, these are my things, this is my stuff, don't touch it." And then I kind of backed off a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a Corners of Rooms live stream in 2 days. And I said, I'm going to have a Corners of Rooms live stream in 2 days. I literally just said it like that. And then I said, I'm not saying you could stick around because I'd rather you not hang out here. But during the live stream, you can show up if you choose. It's your choice. I said something along those words. It's the only time I've ever invited an entity face-to-face to do something on camera in such a private setting. On camera, you've probably seen me many times say, "Can you do something? Can you move something?" But in a private setting where I'm just getting up to go to the bathroom, it's the only time I've ever, that I can think of, invited it to be on camera and do something. Of course, 2 days later, the live stream happens. Zero activity. Thing didn't show up. Did I scare it off? No, I think he was smarter than that. I think it skulked around for many few months. Then I think it lost interest and left. Hopefully. That's the impression I get, that it did skulk around, purposely never showed any evidence on camera. These beings are smart, but they're not as smart as they think they are. Humans are smart, but humans aren't as smart as we think we are. But some humans are smarter than these beings, and some of these beings are smarter than humans, and vice versa. You know, not everyone's cookie cutter genius, cookie cutter idiot. Some of us are just, they might be smart with something that I'm dumb at. I might be smart on a subject that they have no concept of. So I think that's where we can get evidence. The gaps where they're not familiar with what's going on. So these beings, these entities, even if they have been hanging around us for millions of years, they don't know everything. And they seem not to catch on to everything. There's always gaps. So there are weaknesses. And there are traps. So you got to be weary. You got to be understanding that there are consequences. They can follow you home. They can harass you. They can bother you. When I said in a previous video they didn't really do much, I'm trying to downplay that they can do enough to really cause you to lose sleep and cause you to appear to be crazy to other human beings. I would say the worst thing about my poltergeist activity, harassment that happened to me in 2011 isn't the activity itself. I would say probably the worst thing is nobody believes me. It's pretty tough having a good portion of information and not being able to have anyone believe that information. I find the information useful, so I'm going to continue to pursue it. I'm going to push my theories to the limit. But non-believers are going to continually say, it's nothing, and dismiss it. Stay tuned, more episodes coming soon. Be seeing you.